Ciao a tutti, sono Simone e sono qui con Alan Hinds, great guitar player, e facciamo un'intervista con Alan, vediamo che cosa combina.
Hi, my name is Alan Hinds. I'm a guitar player. I live here in Los Angeles, California. I have a relatively new CD out called Monkeys and Slides, and I'm working presently on a new CD that'll probably be a little bit more blues-based. I teach at Musicians Institute in a school called Shepherd University. I do various sessions here at home. I have my first instructional book that'll be out probably in the next couple months on Hal Leonard. It's called Legato Lines, the Creative and Innovative Patterns for Guitar. A lot of licks and some transcriptions from some of my past CDs. I'm going to give you a few demos here of some examples off my latest CD.
What are you going to play?
Well, I'm going to start with a song called Confianca, which is Portuguese for confidence.
Signature lick of the song is that thing we've been talking about before I turned the camera on, which is that G. Yeah, how do you do that?
Well, it's you know, when I'm coming up with ideas, I'll put on a groove and I'll just like play along with it. And this was just one little pattern that I had that was just late one night messing around, but it was. I've always liked the open string sound. You know, whether you have those kind of chords, we have like open jingle jangle type of. It sounds so indicative of the guitar, having those extra strings ringing. So I was sitting around late at night and I just kind of came up with this lick, and it was just using open E add 9 chord, and I hammer on the sharp 11. So that's pretty much what it is. The chorus is going straight at major chords. I'm using the open notes as kind of to glue them all together. So the open G chord to A. That's pretty much what the lick is. It's strange to break it apart and play this slow because I recorded it at a certain tempo.
Basically, it's a combination of finger picking and legatos and open strings.
A lot of hammer-on stuff. Yeah, and the last three are like F sharp, 13. Very last one. G13. A. Which sounds a little altered. You get the 13 and the dominant 7 there together. And a D down there too, which gives it like a sharp 5 sound. Sets up the 5, sets up the 1 chord.
Great. So another thing I wanted you to talk about is that bluesy approach on certain bendings. I found that very interesting because in that specific contest it sounded very earthy, almost Jeff Becky kind of style.
Yeah, I play a lot with my fingers, and
right. That's a combination of bendings and finger picking in that case, right?
Yeah, and I get bored with myself really quick, so I'm always trying to come up with something new and something a little bit quirky, different that might turn somebody's ears. Guitar is so expressive; you can do so many little things that make it really expressive. You know, I take my pick a lot away in between these two fingers, so it's kind of a. Something like that. That's one thing I was doing in that song that time. So I'm not sure if that is. It's like, and then picking a 6 above, and then coming right down. And that becomes like a chromatic approach. But it kind of lands comfortably under the B string, on the B string like that. I think it's a little bit weird. So I do things like that, or I try to, if I'm practicing, I'm sometimes just hanging out with Joe Diorio when I was at MI years ago.
Oh, I love Joe.
Joe was great because he would try anything. It might work, it might not, but you had to give him a lot of credit because he was always trying something new and exciting. And so I'll do things, if I'm not having a particularly inspired day, I'll just say, okay, look, I'm just going to try improvising on the A string and the G string and see what comes up, So I might do like and turn that into an exercise. I mean, I'm just kind of making this up now, but so that idea comes from this being bored with everything else I'm playing and saying, okay, I'm going to try skipping this string. Or sometimes half steps sound that's like a Becky type thing I do sometimes in my solos just for fun. I like to try to connect the patterns as much as I can using little slides. You can get around the fretboard, you can cover a lot of space by doing little things like that. And of course the legato thing, which I've always done. I have a real light right hand touch, so like I can't really pick my action's so low you'd probably hear it buzzing if I picked any harder with my right. So all I have to do is kind of brush. That kind of stuff. End up on a little thing up there, just a quirky little thing. Patterns, little motifs. I try to take small ideas and make them into big ones.
Sure.
Whenever there's like a motive. Fishing for something a little bit different than your normal pentatonic.
Right, of course.
Get out of those boxes as much as I possibly can.
Look, another thing I wanted to talk about with you is the way you use the slide.
Slide guitar?
Yes, slide guitar. I understand there's quite a bit of work as far as slide goes in your CD.
I kind of grew up, there is in the new, that's why I call it Monkeys and Slides.
Right.
I realized a few years ago, slide's always been kind of natural to me. Let me get a different guitar that might have a little...
Sure.
I never really set up my guitar in open tunings, and when I always have in the past, I'll always get kind of comfortable with it, and then I'd go do some stupid lick in standard tuning, and it would sound all wrong. So I kind of learned how to do a few things in standard tuning that kind of sounds like I'm playing in open tuning by turning the slide a certain way. But a lot of it is just a touch that you get, and I just always love the sound of... Just been really attracted to that sound, the sound of slide on the steel string. So a lot of it's following the same scales that we would normally play. There's some slide isms, some little slide techniques that are kind of only for slide. They kind of, you hear on most all certain movements that work really well with slide guitar. Like we're in the key of D here. That kind of little movement. And and I mute a lot. I mute with this finger, and I mute with this hand and this hand, because if I didn't, you'd hear.
Would you say that for this kind of technique, one of the most important secrets is to mute whatever doesn't have to play?
Pretty much. Yeah, you kind of grab a hunk of strings, pretty much one string for every finger. So you're, in that respect, you're kind of like a harp player. You're kind of you're one designated. When you're picking one, you're muting the other.
With the other fingers, right?
The other ones, yeah. Stuff is really cool.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. And I'm noticing that, speaking of muting, in conjunction with your right hand and the slide, also the left hand, I see that the index finger
is always going to be behind too. Now you can do, there's other schools of playing, I do it a little bit, where you can actually pick it behind. press down, so press it down and frets, so you get like some different chord tones. You can get like major 7 chords and stuff that you wouldn't normally get. But what I use that for a lot is like single note lines. I mean, kind of lifting. So I'm kind of alternating with my. I'm kind of rolling this up and down off the strings, so you can get.
What have you been doing lately? What are your current projects? What's
Well, living in Los Angeles, there's a lot of variety of things you can do. I did American Idol. I subbed for their guitar player a couple weeks ago on the TV show. I'm producing an artist actually from Italy. It's one of my old students who's a good fusion player.
what's his name?
Mauro Di Capo, I think his last name is. Work on that the next couple months. He's kind of enlisting me to go around and get all the happening cats in Los Angeles, like Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Babco, to play on his CD for him. And he's a great player. So I'm doing that, and I teach at a couple different schools, Musicians Institute, as well as Shepherd University, which is a new school that me and Abraham Laboriel and Altamaro Ruiz are teaching at. And it's more of a concentrated mentoring process we have, because there's only about 10 guitar students. And but there's singers and there's great bass players from Brazil, they're from all over the world, the students are. So that's a fun little school. And they're on break now for the summer until the fall quarter starts back up. But that takes up a lot of my time, preparing curriculum for that. I'm working on a new CD, which I think is going to be more blues-based and maybe less fusion. I may even try singing, I don't know, it's just a possibility.
Why not?
Why not? I'm getting old and I kind of want to do something I want to do that I've never done.